Welcome to the Center for Universal Oneness. We are an open, welcoming, spiritual community that supports all faith traditions and invites you to join us on your spiritual journey. We host different speakers each week to guide and inspire us. We are guided by universal principles of acceptance of all that is sacred, and we strive to live in the oneness of love. Please enjoy this presentation.
So I believe that there's a bios.
Yep, there is, and it's pretty short. Well, here's the title page. There we go. Studying religion for 22 years. Ooh.
That's amazing. Yeah. I haven't done anything for 22 years.
Well, you're getting close.
And a speaker for the 2018 Parliament of World Religions. It's an amazing accomplishment.
And sorry, next Monday I'm speaking again at the Parliament of World Religions. If you can check out, if you could do a Google or something on the Parliament of World Religions, it's virtual this year. And so it's all next week online. Tickets are so much cheaper, of course, because you don't have to fly there. But there's going to be so many people there, excellent speakers, that you should check them all out. Please do next week.
Carrah, what website would someone go to if they wanted to check that out?
That's the thing. I mean, parliamentofworldsreligions.org or POWR.org, something like that. If you just Google Parliament of World's Religions, you'll get to the website.
Great. Perfect. Thank you for telling us that.
Yeah.
Yes. Religious studies and a master's in philosophy and ecumenics. Tell us about that.
It's basically, they just call it intercultural theology now. It's a way of doing interfaith work or interdenominational work. It comes from the Greek word oikonomy, which means one world.
Perfect. Yes, great. No wonder you're here.
We're very lucky to have you. Thank you.
Yes.
So, everyone, we would like to introduce you to Carrah Quigley, although she needs very little introduction. She's been here at least half a dozen times. So yay, Carrah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. I'm going to try for it now to share my screen. So let's try this and see what happens. You've got my dashboard there. Now let's get this up. Okay, so can everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So again, thank you for having me. I love speaking with you guys. It's always a pleasure. I think Mickey alluded to the fact of headaches, and I think it's also because I just tend to take on really heavy stuff. I've lived heavy stuff, I've experienced heavy stuff, and in order for me to kind of get it out there, I create these talks, and I have you journey with me, so I don't hold back from taking you to the darker places. Thankfully today, this is not one of those days, and I always try to promise to do lighter fare here and there. Today, I want to share with you one of my greatest lessons and joy in life, and that is acting, the craft of acting. I have found nothing more useful in living my human life than to have experienced acting as a student. I was at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in 1997 in New York City. It's a Sanford White building. That's where we were, sandwiched between the Carpet District and Little Korea. That's 30th and Madison. I think the school has changed locations now. Some of its graduates were Robert Redford, Jason Robards, Kirk Douglas, Grace Kelly, Anne Bancroft, Rosalind Russell. So when I walked through those doors, I definitely pinched myself, and I would never think of myself as being anywhere close to the talent of those people. On top of being an avid film buff, which I was shortly before going to the academy, once I learned about acting, now I can watch movies with a whole new eye, and it never ruined the experience for me, just like the moon does not get ruined by astronomers. I'm definitely a lot more picky. I don't waste my time. If an actor can represent the human experience well, for me, there is nothing more magical and potentially provides a place where if art does indeed imitate life, one can find refuge in the representations of things that they hide inside of themselves. Film has always provided a profound connection for me, a way of turning things inside out, to sort things, relate to things, and to also find compassion for the ambiguous hero that I wish to love and hate at the same time. If you get nothing else from this talk, here's what I want you to focus on. The biggest lessons to be gained from acting have to do with listening, the magnitude of staying in the moment, desire, cooperative learning, and of course, I'm going to put one in here for myself, trust. So let's start at the beginning, the history, right? So this was a funnier joke during the first 2016 election, because that's when I gave this talk. So the Russia connection meant something much different than it does now, but it's still a Russia connection. We can all laugh in a different way. Before the Russians, I want to say that acting globally was a performative kind of thing. You portrayed things outward. You were there for the audience. You gave toward the audience. It was an interaction. But this new acting that Stanislavski had invented was internal. It was something about the inside of the character's life, inside the actor's body. So what we're going to do is take a journey of human storytelling and human life through the body, because the only way to tell the human story is from the body, because it's the only thing that truly makes you human. Without it, you don't exist. So here's how storytelling came to Stanislavski from the body. He observed children on a beach, and he recognized that they were encountering things for the first time. And the way that they touched objects was very different than the way an adult would touch objects. Adults tend to skim over a lot of details that they've already accumulated in the brain, whereas a child will wait and look and taste and, put things in their mouth and get a whole sensory experience going. So this was his first kind of revelation that acting needed to change. When he came and toured with the Moscow Art Theater in 1923 and 24, a number of big city actors came to watch the performances. It caused a huge spark because this was new realism. And this system got picked up by not only his students, but then his students that taught the American students. Richard Boleslavsky, who wrote an amazing book about acting, and then Maria Ospenskaya, she was one of the first famous acting coaches here in the United States. They start the American Laboratory Theater. And the students in the American Laboratory Theater included Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg. They became sort of grandparents of acting in America. They formed the group theater. And as you can see, if you know anything about the history of theater, these are very famous names. Again, it's a troupe. This was the first acting troupe in America. I don't want to gloss over vaudeville in any way, but vaudeville had nothing to do with this new realism of acting. You have in here writers, producers, directors, everyone that could put a play on. And so these were some of the more famous people of the group theater. So as we get to this method, one of the other things that created objectivity for Stanislavski, not only looking at things as a child, but also being an animal. So every acting school worth their weight in salt is going to have Animal Day, and you have to show up as an animal. Why? Because it gets you in touch with instinctual ideas and instinctual reactions. It's a give and take. Once you pick your animal, you research it, you find out what it acts like, and then you show up as the animal that day at school and you interact with the other animals. It's kind of remarkable. It sounds scary and strange, but it works. My scene partner was a cheetah, and the way he would hunch his shoulders was quite incredible. If you watch Midnight Cowboy with Dustin Hoffman, you'll find that what he did for Ratso Rizzo was to study a cold and damp crow. And if you watch Ratso Rizzo in that movie, you'll see that quality in Dustin Hoffman. He also put coins famously in his shoes so that he could have that good limp. So let's get to the beginning here. You can't be anything without a script. You can't be anything without words. How is an actor supposed to live without words unless you're a mime? But we're not talking about mimes today. So the script is the first thing you have. This is where the cooperative learning begins. It's stacked right on top of the writer. That's the foundation. Again, the whole idea is to be objective. The first reading is boring and frustrating and very difficult, but it is the place where you discover all the new things. In this first reading, you sit in a circle with your ensemble. You take the words, you take them up, and then you speak them to the person you're supposed to be speaking them to. This is not a typical interaction. It's line, look again, line, look again. You're looking for the initial spark of reaction. You look directly into the actor's eyes. You find out those initial things, and a good director would be taking notes at this time to find out what's working in the chemistry. Emotional recall and effective memory. These two terms get interchanged. This is what Stanislavski is. This is his hallmark. This is what he brings. It's taking things that you remember as a child or at some point in your life, and then grafting those same feelings onto the same situation you find in the script. If you have been rejected, you recall what that feeling was like to be rejected. That character in this scene is being rejected. And so you graft your rejection onto that character. And hopefully the two can kind of meet in the middle to show rejection, because you have to show everything. Sensory work. This was really key. My first 2 weeks of acting school were spent taking my shoes off and putting them back on again, and then taking my shoes off and putting them back on again with no shoes or socks. You have to show how to do it. I had an entire final in which we did a play called The Art of Dining, and we had to eat without food and cook without food and taste without food. You have to show how you do it. Remember, the theater has no weather. The theater has no temperature. The theater has sometimes no props. So you have to show that. What's it like to cut into a well-done steak versus a medium rare steak? How do you show that in what you're doing? The cup, this was always a good one. You've got a cup. There's tons of scenes with cups in them. This is all over. It's universal. So our teacher would make us come in with a full cup. That changes the way you walk. You walk slower. Empty cup, you throw it around. A cup filled with poison. How do you hold that? How do you walk with that? It's very different. The weather, how do you show that it's a downpour versus just a drizzle? How do you show a beautiful day versus a very cold, wet day? These are all things that are shown in the body. It comes from the body. So you become an excellent observer. One of the reasons why I think training is so vital in New York City is that it's a great place to observe human nature. So you spend a lot of time looking at people and watching people. So here's where we get the union of script and body here. After you've done all the sensory work and you're in there, with that script, you take the place in props. So you start bringing in things that are meaningful to you in the scene. And you've got personal props, you've got the props of others, and you've got place. So with your body saying the script, which you have memorized by now, you're going to rub your body all over that place. You're going to rub your body on the couch. You're going to rub your body on the chairs, the tables. All those props are going to be rubbed on your body. Why? Because you know the texture of your couch. You know the texture of that chair. You know what it's like to sit down in that chair. You know what it's like to sit at your table. You've got to be able to present that comfort in your body by the time you get to performance. Physicality and costume. Let's talk about our bodies, right? You're going to say the script and touch your body the entire time. Find something in that script that resonates in your body. Sometimes with physicality, you'll find that you don't really get there until you get that costume on. Or you get to hold those real props at dress rehearsal. Especially if you're in like time period pieces, that corset or whatever you're wearing is going to get you into that posture. So physicality sometimes is a journey that takes a while. If your character has a limp, has a cough, has a way of doing that, you'll start that very early to get in there. You know, people who play Richard III have the famous, hunchback that they have to kind of learn how to walk with. The hardest one, relationship. How do you relate to the other characters in your play? And you guessed it, you rub your body on everybody. So if you have a scene partner, you're doing scene work, you're going to rub your body all over your other person while you say the script, because you're going to find those words that have to do with that relationship. The way you interact with your partner in real life, be it friends or a partner that you live with, you know their body. You know everything about their body just by living with them and knowing them. You've got to create that history enough for somebody to believe you with that script. So you use the words to find everything in your body and everything about the history in that person, everything about the history in your props. If our coach felt that we were being disconnected, she might say something like, "Where did you buy that chair? And how much was it? And when it was brought to your door, how was it delivered and who delivered it? Did you catch the name of the guy?" Now, of course, this is nowhere in the script, but you've got to know enough, because that's how much you know about your own life. That's how much you know about what's in your house or your place. So basically, we take off from there. This is the method. The method is building emotional recall in the body, relationship in the body, everything about a human life within that script. From the body it comes. Lee Strasberg, he doubled down on the Stanislavski method, really was wed to emotional recall. So what can you imagine happened to Stanislavski's students before modern psychology, before there were therapists, before you could talk about trauma? all of his students, of course, went insane. So Stanislavski, it must be noted, backed down from emotional recall, backed down from effective memory, and realized that without knowledge or support of what's going on in people's childhoods, you couldn't really take this work to the full extreme because people would go mad. Lee Strasberg didn't care. He believed that the actor's life, the actor's body, everything could be found inside of there for the character as it was needed. So he was notoriously a difficult teacher, but he was good. Stella Adler, she did not believe in emotional recall. If you weren't going to use it, all of her students started to go insane as well. So she said, well, we're actors, we're creative, we're artists. Let's use our imagination. So her big contribution was the what if. Let's not put ourselves in reality. Let's just say what if, because let's keep in mind, scripts are not real life. You're not really witnessing people in real life. You're witnessing people in a heightened state of reality here to get some things conveyed, right? We have to go to an extreme sometimes to convey things. Stella was really a stickler for voice and speech and sense memory. So as long as you were sensorily in there, your sight, your touch, your smell, everything was in there, you could kind of be in that character with your what ifs and imagination. Your imagination could ground you there, but through the voice, impeccable dictation and accents and all the things that she made her students study, that voice was the thing that carried you through. And I find it interesting that in sacred elements of ceremony, it's the speaking of things that really makes it so. It's the sealing of it through that voice. So I think that's an interesting human element as well. She was very strict about the script. Again, just go back to the text, you'll find everything. The Meisner technique. So this guy is sort of so creative. He's off in his own world. Keep in mind, he's still going to use elements of the Stanislavski method, but Sandy Meisner kind of went in a totally different direction. I would say almost scientific in a way. I was taught by a student of Sandy Meisner. She was a hard ass. She was, everything you'd think of as a acting coach. She yelled and screamed, sometimes hate you, got you to do things. She was very loving, but the art was it for her. So Meisner, this can be very tedious. He invented this thing called repetition. And what repetition does, you've got you and your scene partner, you just pick up on something organic. You have a blue shirt. And the other actor would say, I have a blue shirt. And you would say, you have a blue shirt. I have a blue shirt. You have a blue shirt. You would do this until something organic changed. Oh, your head tilted. My head tilted. Your head tilted. Oh, you're smiling. You're smiling. You're smiling. I'm smiling. You're laughing. I'm laughing. I'm laughing. And you just keep going. What this did was it reduced all scene work and all script work down to just listening and looking at the person. So a majority of your work depended on getting it from the other person. So you have to have a good actor with you to be able to bring it back onto you to react to something. And when you start that level of observation and listening, the moment becomes magical. You stay in that moment, you realize how big it is, that everything around you can be looked at, can be taken in. It's a big deal. So only an organic shift could cause that movement. So when you're in a script and the emotions get high, then you can take that turn and see it happen. So this is where it all gets stripped down. So further, what he did to strip things down in scene work was what's called the outrageous activity. When you start to watch movies from now on, or television shows or whatever, if you watch closely, there's usually somebody doing an activity that's important. They have to keep doing it. And then they get interrupted by somebody else to come in because they have objective too. And this other person has an objective and they have to keep interrupting each other. And this is what storytelling is. Acting or character is about what happens on your way to your objective. You have a desire, you have a want. That's going to carry you through the play. The stakes have to be high, and sometimes you have to invent them yourself if you don't relate to the character. But this is the genius of Sandy Meisner, is he stripped it all down to an activity, your wants, and getting interrupted. And you'll find that this is kind of how storytelling really works. Uta Hagen, another good acting coach in New York City. Her friends, acting students that were in New York City with me, they were her students. She was still alive when I was there. Her contributions were really 5 minutes alone with the actor. This was a good fourth wall exercise. It was just an exercise, and you could be in character or just yourself. and you just waited and sat there for 5 minutes, because that's kind of what we do in life. How active can you show that being? Telephone exercises with Uta Hagen were huge. You'd be on the phone, and I'm showing my time here, right? By holding the phone like this. And you would just kind of look out at your fourth wall. This is a Stanislavski concept. The fourth wall is public solitude, is the thing that separates you from the audience. It's just this little thing. It's probably the other wall of your apartment in your scene or house or wherever you are. It could be the beach. There's a really famous play called The House of Blue Leaves, where the Pope's visit to New York City takes up a huge portion of this play. Some directors use a TV, some don't. So the actors have to agree on where this TV is going to be to watch the action. Uta Hagen's largest, is that even a word? Largest contribution was the objective exercise. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Another big one is clues for the character. As soon as you received your script, you would write what other people say about you, what you say about yourself. And that's where you start. And if you take that on as a life exercise, I think you'll find, and I found this, if you write down what people say about you, you'll find they're a lot nicer than you are to yourself. That's for sure. So here's the objective exercise. And we had to do this as people, ourselves, and we had to do this as each character. Who am I? What time is it? What era do I live in? Where am I? What am I surrounded by? What are the given circumstances in my life right now? What's my relationship to people in my environment? What do I want? What is in my way? And what do I do to get what I want? We did this exercise several times as ourselves because our coaches wanted to see how we changed and shifted. So lessons for real life. Okay, here we go. The biggest one is listening. You cannot be an actor, you cannot be a human unless you truly listen and truly observe the other person. And what are you getting from the behavior of that other person that's telling you the real story? And how will that change? This is down at the end of the thing. How will it change your empathy? Not bringing the former scene into the new scene. You know, the big climax happens at the end of Act 2, and Act 3 is 3 months later, right? You've got to be able to walk into that Act 3 without bringing the stuff from Act 2. And this is a good lesson. Don't bring your other crap into the new scene. You don't need to do that. We're all coming from somewhere. Again, this gets into the empathy thing. You've got to, we always had to show where we were coming from when we walked in the door. And you were successful or not successful. So always keep in mind, people are coming from somewhere when they're with you. Moment to moment, don't go for results. It's also a process and a discipline. You get up every day, you do your work, you do your exercises, you keep going to perfect your craft. What do you want? What is your objective? These are excellent questions for life. Keep asking them all the time. Empathy. Actors talk a lot about empathy, especially in this day and age. When you have to play someone that you wouldn't relate to or somebody that you would normally hate, how do you do it? Because you cannot judge your character, it will show. I had to play a little girl from Taste of Honey, a famous British play. Couldn't stand her mother, couldn't stand anything. And of course I failed. I mean, there was no way to do it. The big one for us was always, could you play Eva Braun, Hitler's wife? And so we all had to sit around and talk about positive characteristics of Hitler, if you can believe it. But this is the level of empathy you have to come to play a character. And it's a good exercise. The other thing is, once you're on stage, you can't hide your flaws. You can't hide. Acting has a way of showing and sort of spotlighting, if you will, pun intended, what your flaws are. It's going to show up in all of your work. There. So you really can't hide. So let's talk about how this shows up. This is my favorite part. Great performances. It's all fun from here on out. Let's talk about Streetcar Named Desire. You know, it might be dated. I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'll say that I still think this is the gold standard in terms of acting, directing, producing, and writing. Tennessee Williams writes women in a most complex way. I'm not sure that Tennessee Williams in the long run has been healthy for America, like Eugene O'Neill even too. But watch this. This is good relationship work, grounding in your sensory work. Keep in mind also, these people were also in the Broadway play. So they had some extra work ahead of them to get onto the film. This was when I first did this second season or third season, Stranger Things had come out. I want to show that the small screen has some really epic acting. Joe Keery in Stranger Things, he was phenomenal. He has to do stuff that's like crazy, and he makes you really uncomfortable. And I loved what he did. Again, small screen. I live with a tween, so here we go. Lily Reinhardt from Riverdale, not my favorite show, but you can find good acting anywhere, and it's there. And bless her, she has such a horrible script and other horrible things to deal with, and she makes the most of it. Good acting in this one. If you can remember this one from the late 90s, Monsters Ball. Excellent work by both actors, totally connected to what they were doing. Elizabeth Moss, whether she's Mad Men or Handmaid's Tale, she's really invested, always there. Mahershala Ali, I didn't know his work from small screen, from The Wire or anything else. I only first saw him on Moonlight, the movie. And when he came onto the camera, you saw a whole history of a character there. You saw a whole history of a person. He does not waste his words. Everything is full with him. He's really just phenomenal. So my least favorite movie of all time, besides Gladiator, would have to be Titanic. If you have to suffer through the nearly 3 hours of this horrible film, good luck to you. Anyway, one reason that's a good reason to watch Titanic is Leonardo DiCaprio. Watch him in everything. His objective work, what do you want, is absolutely clear with him all the time. Revenant is another good one. Blood Diamond is so good with this. When you watch Titanic, his objective is Rose, and that's it. Rose, 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 Rose. On the end of every word, that is his objective until the end. And, you know, you could say, although this is unusual in any script, he succeeded because Rose ends up surviving, right? Rarely does a character succeed at their objective. Regina King, she's now becoming a director. She's awesome. Jerry Maguire with Regina King. I'm trying to pick more mainstream stuff here, but Jerry Maguire, this is her film. She's so good at her objective in this. I want you to pay attention to Saving Private Ryan for sensory work. Again, in my opinion, not the best film out there, but pay attention to the heat, the running, because remember, they just yelled action. Nobody ran anywhere, but you'll see them huff and puff as they're on camera because they want to make you think that they're running. The sweat, which is really just a spray bottle of water, you imagine it to be sweat. The death and dying scenes in this, where people have to work on what that might be like to die, all good work. Watch it for the sensory work. Director's choices, again, let's talk about manipulation a little bit. If anybody recalls in Saving Private Ryan, by the time they get to Private Ryan, a lot's happened. They had to go through a lot and they lost a few guys to get there. What Steven Spielberg decided to do with his actors was he made everybody do basic training for the Army, except Matt Damon, who plays Private Ryan. So by the time the two casts converge, when they meet each other, there is resentment build up from these guys when they meet Private Ryan, having found out he never had to do basic training. So that was the director's way of manipulating the situation to get the emotional content that was needed to resent Private Ryan. Good choices. A good director does that. All Quiet on the Western Front. I want to show that pre-Method, right? Because Method didn't hit the American film until the late 40s. You can have good acting. You can have good acting without all that. They've just simply put themselves in this situation sensorily. One of the things about this production is the sound. I mean, the sound quality on this film before CGI, before all this stuff is really good. And they have to react to sound and being scared in ways that are just breathtaking. Relationship work in Sophie's Choice, Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline. I mean, there's nothing better than this. They had everything figured out. And if you ever read anything about behind the scenes with this, they were quite humorous. I mean, there are two really good actors who understand this, but they talk about rubbing on each other's bodies to get some of the work out that they needed to get done. Other good things to look out for: physicality in Some Like It Hot. I mean, they're trying to walk in high heels. They're trying to wear pantyhose and bras and everything else. They do such a good job with this. This film never gets old. Kevin Kline, physically in anything. There's a really good scene. It lasts about a second in The Big Chill, where he jumps over the couch to sit. And Kevin Kline's famous for these physical moves like that. But it's just a second, but keep in mind what has to go into that. That has to be his couch. It has to be his home. It has to be his stereo and his music and his record collection. He has to own all that to make that leap to the couch look natural, and we don't think anything of it. Another good physical actor, Jack Black, Melissa McCarthy also. These people are just incredible with their bodies. For moment to moment work, meaning grabbing a reaction, reacting to it, back to forth. Relationship work is solid. Secrets and Lies from the late 90s. Such a good film. Again, director manipulation. Mike Leigh makes his actors live in a house together for 3 months to get to know each other. He also makes them take on the occupation they have in the movie. So Marianne Jean-Baptiste there on the left was an optometrist for 4 months before she began filming. Taraji P. Henson, excellent actor all around, physical, connected, moment to moment. Jack Nicholson. So why do I bring him up besides him being a genius? Well, people, when they talk about working with Jack, they talk about him being a very generous actor. What does that mean? Well, remember Sandy Meisner, you're only getting your reactions off what the actor's giving you. So keep in mind, in film work, there's only one camera. They film one scene facing one actor, and then they go through the scene again, filming it from the other perspective. Then they go through the scene again, filming 2 shots. Then they go through the scene again from a far away to a close-up. They film this scene 5 or 6 times from different perspectives. What Jack did was that even when the camera wasn't on him, he gave it his all. And what you'll find is some actors reserve themselves for when they're going to be on camera to give it their all. Jack didn't. He knew that you had to give in order to get the good reaction. So that's it for the slides. I just want to say that human beings, it takes a lot to create a human being. It takes a lot to create the history. It takes a lot to be in that body. And I hope that just by understanding just a little bit here of the method I've shared today, you'll be able to enjoy film a little bit more and understand that it is no small task to be a human. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to stop. Did I stop sharing my screen?
Yes, you did.
All right, then. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrah. You're going to do the meditation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, we'll start that now. So let's talk about this position with the feet flat on the floor. Finding a straight spine or whatever is comfortable for you. And I want you to really kind of engage in your humanness. I know that in Unity, we talk about spirit over human, but right now just ground yourself in your bones and muscle and your skin and your cells. Open up your hands if that's comfortable for you. And just begin to breathe deeply. Inhaling all that beautiful air and then exhaling it out again to begin anew. And sit feeling grounded in your presence. If you have someone else around you, allow that presence to be with you as well. And just keep that breath sitting here for just a few moments in silence as you sort of take in and ground in your own body. Connecting again with that breath. Feeling all the corners, nooks and crannies of your body. Slowly coming back. And slowly begin to open those eyes again. Returning to some regular breathing. And thank you so much.